Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies and comrades, I hope you're doing well on this Sunday. I just want to speak about the crazy news cycle that's going around in Kenya. There's so much political commotion that's happening in Kenya, and you can tell this is all done by design. It's done by design, okay? This is not something that it just happened. All of a sudden, we are just worried about Gachagua being maybe arrested or what's his name? Martha Karua denied entry in Tanzania. By the way, for all of you guys who are speaking there talking about deportation, Martha Karua got deported. She was never deported. She has never been deported. She's not deported. She was denied entry from in Tanzania, and she took a flight back. She even posted the flight number on her way back, giggling, having selfies and all that stuff on her way back. So that was never deportation. A deportation is a process, okay? If Tanzania felt like she was in violation of a kind of law, whatever the case is, that will mean that, she was in the country already and violated some kind of law, and they would have taken her to arraign her in court and explain the charges. And then, the judge will have ruled that she should be taken back to Kenya. But that's not the case. But anyway, one thing I want you to guys, I want people to just think a little bit, because I feel like this game that the media is playing on the Kenyan people, it's so funny because people are so falling for this nonsense all the time. And sometimes you have to be just, like I told you, every news that comes in that kind of goes viral, you have to ask yourself questions. So I'll be very brief. I don't want to keep it long. That's why I didn't want to make a live, because today I'm kind of caught up. I'm in the park somewhere. So I'll just make this short. I will not waste your time with a lot of fluff, because this is a recorded video and I will not edit it. I'll just give it to you raw like it is. So if I make a mistake or I sound whatever, do not worry about it. Just receive it as it is. Anyway, let's get to the matter. By the way, like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and tell your friends about this channel, okay? Anyway, very quick, let's get to it. I want to open your eyes, okay? I want you to think deeply. Leading up to a few weeks, or this past week, when Rigathi Gachagua, came up with his new party, DCP, okay? Mbadi and this administration, they have been telling us about what the contents of the Finance Bill 2025. They've been basically telling us that, this is what is included. There'll be no more taxing. There'll be less taxes than the previous one. Nothing has changed. Of course, there are people who are looking at this proposed finance bill, and they've started taking it apart. Making people aware of what's in it, whether we are going to pay more taxes or not. So this, to me, I want you to think, this to me is the government, the administration, the oligarchs, the political oligarchs, the political class, preemptive or taking a preemptive action to kind of ease their way past this June, July period and August period, where they suspect, maybe through the NIS, all the intelligence briefing, that there might be another maandamano that's in place in commemoration for what happened last year for the Finance Bill 2024, or for the real revolutionary movement of Occupy State House 2025. So they are taking this preemptive action by going out there. It's like when you want to break bad news to somebody and you don't want it to sound so bad, you don't wait and give that bad news as the last resort. You want to kind of take a preemptive measures, like start leaking it out kidogo, ndio uone vile huyo mtu atareact. So that's what's happening with finance bill, okay? They are leaking it bits by bits so they can see the people's reaction. But the main fear of the political oligarchs, this administration being the representative of the political oligarchs of Kenya, is that they fear that we might have a repeat on June 25th or in June or July or August, we might have a repeat of a popular people's revolution. So they have ramped up the political temperatures in Kenya by causing a bunch of destruction, okay? I'm not talking about destruction as destroying property. That's not what I mean. I mean by distracting you with heightened political activities, okay? Heightened political activities. So what do I mean by that? If you remember, look at what's happening politically right now, okay? Gachagua just unveiled his political party last week or a few days ago, right? Gachagua unveiled the DCP party, okay? If you all remember that, he went up there and, it kind of captured the news. And of course, it was disappointing. I made a video about that. But not only that, the reaction was not what they actually expected. It was underwhelming. So what did they do? Gachagua the next day went up and had a public rally or whatever the case, and nobody really paid much attention to it. It was more energetic than the unveiling of the party. But what really kind of got people talking is that Gachagua, when he went to Obina's show, he ramped up his rhetoric, actually making, outrageous claims about the president. Or the president was crying. I dare the president not to, try to rig the elections, the coming elections, that might lead the country into a civil war, something like that. So basically what I'm saying, if you notice there's a pattern with Gachagua's interviews, each interview that Gachagua has, they seem to be more outrageous. He says more outlandish stuff than the previous video. So like the last one, he was saying, sijui RFK, Ruto has land in Congo, Ruto is involved in mining, Ruto is sijui nini. Now this, the one with the previous one, he kept on like ramping up. Yani is taking it up a notch by saying more outrageous stuff. So this one on Obina's show, when he mentioned the elections and just kept on telling us about how Ruto was crying and all this. So this captured the mood. They're trying to ramp up that tension to capture the Kenyan people, majority of Kenyan people's attention from the finance bill or any possible popular finance bill 2025 movement that might result to Occupy State House 2025. So there's all the state actors, the people who are part of this political oligarch. They're working together with Ruto to cause this political tension. So Gachagua, after making all this astounding revelations or whatever, comments or whatever the case you want to call it, reckless statement by any standard of imagination about Ruto, of course, there was blowback to that. Oscar Sudi replied by basically just calling Gachagua stupid and all that stuff, which is also ramping up the political temperature. But they did not stop there. Look at this. This is a multifaceted attack on the Kenyan people's psyche to move your attention away from what you might be thinking of if you dare think of maybe going to protest against this finance bill 2025 or Occupy State House 2025. So what do? Okay, so the Gachagua saga. Remember, we've been talking here. We've been saying this along other people who have mentioned that how come Gachagua has been saying all this obnoxious, offensive things about the president, and still he hasn't been arrested. There's nothing. They're not even doing anything about it. Because historically we know that anyone who speaks against a sitting president always end up in jail, or the DCI comes and arrest you, or your property gets seized, or stuff like that. Okay, something always happens to you. They always come for you if you talk reckless about the sitting president, because we know the Kenyan system, of course, we have a constitution that has devolved system, but the president, as you know, any president, even after 2010, still holds much power. Power is still mostly concentrated on the administrative part of the government, which is the executive branch that is headed by the head of state, which is the presidency, okay? So Ruto still wields a lot of power. Basically, he's still a dictator. But what I'm trying to say is this. Now that they've seen that the Kenyan people are not reacting to this political tension that they're trying to create with Wamunyoro and Raila joining the broad base, the Kalumas, trying to spark this traditionally known political difference between Luos and Kikuyus. They've seen that that's not working, so they're ramping up the tension between Gachagua and Ruto. And now they used Obina's platform, okay, where Gachagua went and said what he said, which was reckless as I said it, and now Oscar Sudi is replying. Then now, since they want to see that they want to really get their attention, totally capture the Kenyan people's attention, what do? They send the DCI and the police to go after Gachagua. They know this will make news. They know that. It's the silliest thing you can do if you are the president trying to go for a demagogue like Gachagua, because you are basically making his case. You're making him famous. You're making him notorious. You're making him the people's favorite by doing that. If anything, you should just ignore him and let him say whatever he says, unless he breaks the law, which he did not. Regardless of how reckless he spoke at Obina's TV show, there's no law that Gachagua actually broke. So what I'm saying is this, in not so many words, is that by sending the DCI and the police forces to go and seize Gachagua's residence in Karen and Wamunyoro, of course, this is a calculated move to basically make news, to heighten the political temperature. It's a very silly but calculated move in order to, they're trying to bait the watu wa mlima to react and be, go out in the streets and say, hey, watching this Wamunyoro is our people, is our guy, why you guys are doing that? That is one aspect of how they're capturing your imagination, your attention, to move your focus away from a possible Finance Bill 2025 protest similar to the one last year, and also to shift your focus away from any possible Occupy State House 2025. Another aspect is this. Let's look at Martha Karua's whole shenanigans, okay? Shenanigans. This lady was trying to make it to Tanzania. She went up there. She claims that, they were detained for, 3 or whatever hours. They kept her there. Then eventually people are saying deported. Whatever the case is, it's not a deportation. Basically, they denied her entry from getting into Tanzania. But here's the funny thing. If you're being detained, okay, if you want to know how silly these people are with their whole shenanigans, creating all this clout just to draw attention to themselves, okay? If you're being detained by Tanzanian authorities, if you looked at Martha Karua, you'd have thought she's waiting for a connecting flight to wherever she was going, to her destination. She was sitting there with 2 other ladies who happened to be lawyers, I guess, and they were taking selfies, laughing, joking, hey, it's peace, blah, 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 we are whatever. It was as if they were like in a private, when you take if you are in a first class, if you booked first class on a flight, it was like a secret, not a secret, but a private lounge. If you ever, for you guys if you've taken British Airways or Air France or Emirates or whatever, they always have if you are a member, you always go to a private lounge where it's not as crowded, okay? That's what it seemed like. It didn't seem to me like they were really, it was as if they were connecting flights. But regardless, what I'm saying is this: Martha Karua was not detained. She was simply denied entry from Tanzania, okay? Sorry, I'm not saying she wasn't deported. I'm saying that she was denied entry from Tanzania. Maybe because of her involvement, maybe she was trying to involve herself with Tindilusu, whatever her name is, that opposition leader from Tanzania. Maybe that was the case. I don't know why they did not want her in there. Of course, there's been politicians who have complained about her involvement in Tanzanian politics. Uganda did the same, but I'm just saying that was not a deportation. That was simply Martha Karua denied entry into Tanzania. They basically tell her, hey, listen, we cannot let you in here for whatever reason. So you need to go back wherever you are. You can go to wherever you want. You can go to Uganda, you can go to the US, you can go to UK, you can go to whatever, but you're not getting into Tanzania. So Martha Karua took a Kenya Airways flight back to Nairobi. And if you want to know that this thing was all planned for clout, to draw attention to Martha Karua and her nonsense, as soon as she get to JKIA, she held a press conference. Who does that? Okay? If you're detained for 3 hours or whatever the case is, you are in an airport or whatever, and you just arrived back, all of a sudden you have a press conference at the JKIA talking about your experience with the Tanzanian authorities for not letting. And Babu Owino retreated this by saying that, oh, Martha Karua has been denied her human rights. Her human rights were not denied, were not violated by the Tanzanian authorities. That is their country. They get to decide if you can come in or not. That is not Martha Karua's home. Martha Karua does not have the right to get into Tanzania. She's not a Tanzanian citizen, okay? She doesn't have a home there. She doesn't have a whatever. So you cannot say that her rights were violated. Her rights were not violated. They simply denied her authority entry. They denied her, they didn't grant her entry to their own country, which they do have a right to take that position for whatever reason. So the Tanzanian people are not on the wrong on this, okay? Unless they can argue that Karua was Tindulusu's personal lawyer, then that's a different case. And even then, she can still communicate with Tindulusu through internet or whatever, a live session through Zoom or whatever the case is, okay? So let me just say this. The whole Martha Karua saga is a sham, is a script. Again, that's another way of the political class to use that to capture attention. Like I said, immediately she came back, she hopped into a KQ airplane, and as soon as she landed in JKIA, she had a press conference. And a few hours from that, she had an exclusive interview with NTV Kenya explaining her so-called ordeal with the Tanzanian authorities. Who does that? I mean, listen, I get it. She got denied entry, or let's say she got deported from Tanzania. Who is Martha Karua? If she is Tindolusu's friend or lawyer, why is that national news? What interest does it serve the Kenyan people to know that Martha Karua was denied entry to Tanzania? What does that have to do with Kenyans? If she was going there on her personal business because of her friend was detained or whatever the case is, that is not the concern of majority of Kenyans. That's her private business. Why are you making it national news? Grabbing headlines, explaining to us, oh, she's been detained, or she's been deported, or her human rights have been violated. I mean, how silly are we getting? So this whole Martha Karua thing is another avenue of distraction from the focus, which is Finance Bill 2025 or Occupy State House 2025, which majority of people, young people and majority of Kenyans have started thinking about, okay? Now, the third one is Morara and Kasmuel. You saw them today. They went and had a political rally, actually. They were out there, okay, holding a rally, which was laughable because these guys, they say, Morara, he has been running around making videos asking for money because he said in order to hold a rally, they need money. But all of a sudden, they have some money now. They can actually hold a rally. They were standing on a rooftop, okay, addressing the public. Then there was a stage with DJs and there were people who gathered. And where did they get that money to hold that rally? Okay, because they didn't tell us that they didn't. I mean, where did they get the money? Okay, so these are the things that I'm telling you. But let me tell you this, just in conclusion, just to finish it. And I will go live tomorrow to expound more how this is being played on the minds of Kenyans. Most than likely, the NIS, the intelligence in Kenya, has gotten report that maybe there's a possibility of another finance bill, Occupy State House 2025 or Occupy Parliament or another protest against this finance bill that's coming, okay? That's coming. That's been wamepata intelligence that kwamba watu wanataka kusanyika kurudi kwa maandamano. And they remember that the last maandamano was about removing Ruto. It was no longer about Occupy Parliament. It was no longer about finance bill. It was about removing Ruto. That's the talk. So most likely, the intelligence community gathered some evidence, and they probably got a whiff that the people are organizing to go to protest against the finance bill, and also to go occupy State House, Nairobi, and take out Ruto. And now the distractions have started. That's why they are ramping up this rhetoric against Ruto with Gachagua saying outrageous stuff. And finally, after Gachagua talking for more than I don't know how many months, talking ill about the sitting president, and nothing happened. But finally, why now are they deciding to send the police or DCI to look for him? It is for that very reason, for you to fragment the population. Because remember, all these three guys that have been that made news today, the 3-4 people, it was Kalonzo had his whatever speaking about the DC. Remember, this is how you know it is scripted. Listen to me. Lastly, before I finish, and I want to finish with this. I don't want to make this long. If you want to know that this thing is scripted, Kalonzo was holding had a press conference outside a church or whatever the case is, where Wavinya Ndeti was there too, and he mentioned that there are rumors that the DCI is targeting Natembeya because Natembeya has been speaking ill about the president. Then he said the same thing is happening with Gachagua. And a few hours later, it was reported that the police are going after Gachagua. Okay? So then, very same day, Morara Kasmuel and Morara and Kasmuel holds a rally, okay, a public rally. And today they were not complaining about financing the rally, but all of a sudden they have money to do that. They went and held a rally, okay, saying they are running for president and getting the youth to make noise and whatever they say. At the same time, Martha Karua did not want to be left out, also had a fake saga with Tanzanian authorities and talking about she's being deported, and flew back in KQ, and all of a sudden she had an interview in KJKL, and after that she's on primetime news, NTV exclusive interview by Martha Karua. Okay? What is the common theme here? These guys were in one coalition. All of them are in one coalition. Okay? And they're working with Ruto, because the idea is, again, the idea is to distract the Kenyan people, especially the Gen Z, from their plan, any possible plan of going to the streets to protest against the finance bill or to occupy State House. They are trying to deter them from repeating what they did last summer, which was to occupy State House or occupy Parliament or protest against whatever, because that is what scared them shitless. That's why they're playing and they're causing all this unnecessary political commotion, whether it's the Martha Karua with the Tanzanians, whether it's Gachagua. All of a sudden, now that they've decided, they are going for Gachagua. Okay, Kalonzo is speaking out against the DCI, going for Natembeya. They're going for the Natembeya. It's all scripted, because the political class, the Kenyan political oligarchs, are doing this to distract the Kenyan people from a possible repeat of Occupy Parliament 2025 or Occupy State House as they left it, as they plan to. Okay, that is the main reason. That is what they're avoiding the Kenyan people to. That's why in the next few weeks leading up to June and July, there'll be a lot of political commotion. Utasikia Gachagua has been detained. Utasikia sijui Martha Karua has been detained. That's why you see they're talking about dictatorship. These are all things that are meant to distract you, to move your mind away from the idea of going to protest against this government or to go to State House and remove Ruto. This is why they're doing this. All these guys are in one team. That's why they're doing all this kuna political tension around. Anyway, guys, I'll leave it here. I'll go live and explain more tomorrow so we can talk more about this. But do not fool by this whole political commotion that's happening right now. Share, like, subscribe, and, you know, leave your comments. I want to hear what you have to say. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace and blessings.